If you think about the buyer today, firstly, it's multi-generational. When you have so much of information, then it's also very confusing. It's like the paradox of choice. Like how much effort it takes for a developer to create a township. The key one would be to consult your spouse.
Welcome to another episode of Spill the Tea, powered to you by T360, where we bring to you wonderful and curated experiences for all our Tropicana homeowners. Well, today in the office or in the house, we have a very special person. Most of you, when you buy property, where do you go to? You go to online portals, you do some research before you make that heavy decision. Well, in the office today, we have with us from PropertyGuru, the Managing Director, Mr. Vic Sithasanan. Please give him a round of applause, guys.
Thanks. That's hell of an intro there, I have to say. So you've obviously done this quite a few times.
I try to pick it up, but I don't know as you go.
Thanks so much for having me here. Really a pleasure to be here. So as you said, I'm Vic. I'm the Managing Director for PropertyGuru in Malaysia. So PropertyGuru actually manages two portals, as you pointed out earlier. So yeah, PropertyGuru and iProperty is both PropertyGuru group.
Nice. Okay, so I'm sure everyone knows about iProperty. People know about PropertyGuru. Now let's start the whole ball game and let's spill the tea. Come on. So from where you sit at PropertyGuru, how would you describe the mindset of property buyers today?
It's actually really interesting, and it's a very multi-dimensional question and answer. So we have to kind of peel the layers, like almost go down to, peel the onion. If you think about the buyer today, firstly, it's multi-generational. There are multiple generations of buyers there. So you have Gen Z who just started working, starting to earn, want to go and live on their own, might be living with their parents today. You have Gen X, you have baby boomers still buying maybe, kind of retirement property, etc. So you have different generations. And with that, you also have very different behaviors. But I think what's really interesting that's very different for us right now is to see how younger buyers are going out to market. And I think that's actually quite different. And we should talk a bit about that. So if you think about yourself as a younger buyer, so let's just say someone who is maybe 35 and younger, you're grown up with the internet. You have access to a lot of data. As you say, you come to portals like PropertyGuru, iProperty, you have a lot of background information on pricing. Your social media, you see a lot of influencers, you hear a lot of podcasts. So you're getting a lot of information in terms of what is potentially suitable for your very important life decision. So that's one piece, which is really great because they are very well informed. But the paradox is when you have so much of information, then it's also very confusing. It's like the paradox of choice. Like, oh, how do I weigh this benefit versus this benefit? So we also see a lot of that kind of a bit of confusion in terms of, so if you think about even like search behavior on the site, it may not be very linear in terms of people just looking at one place. You can see that a person will come in, maybe they'll spend, say one session on an area. They might come back again a few days later and they're suddenly in a very different area that's, 30 miles away, 30 kilometers away.
Not because they dropped off.
No, not because they dropped off. It's just
something happened along the way.
Yeah. So, they are evaluating townships and then maybe they say, oh, this has this facility. Oh, maybe we should consider this, but completely different area. So very, very different from, for instance, if I were to put myself, when I was first looking to buy a place when I was really young, obviously now I'm not so young, but the choices were very simple. It's like what was recommended by family. Because of course, this very important decision, you're too young to make this on your own. So we're all going to help you make this decision. And with that, you end up living pretty close to relatives or your parents or whatever. And that's essentially how choices were made back in the day. So right now it's actually quite different. So for us, when we look at it there's lots of available data, lots of tools to help you evaluate, like using AI, for instance. Uploading a bunch of information and saying, okay, help me decide or show me what is the benefit of one versus the other, etc. So a lot of those kind of things happening. That's very different from even 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
So we can input our requirements.
Yeah.
Per se.
Just upload, right? And then, just upload
your report.
Yeah. So what you could do is go to, say, PropertyGuru. You have 5 different listings, put the 5 different URLs in ChatGPT and you can say, look, I'm, say, a young family. I don't, I've just got married. I don't have kids. but I'm looking to potentially have kids in, let's say, 5 years. Why don't you find me something that's suitable? And then you can brainstorm with the AI, right? Like, might ask you things like, are you into sports, or are you, where do you work? How many days a week do you go to office, or do you work from home? And based on that, it could give you a pretty good answer at the end of the day. Draw you a nice table, give you all the check marks and whatnot, and you can make a decision from there. But again, there's so much of information and so many tools out there. Then you're like, oh, but what if this, or what if that? Yeah.
I have so many questions. Here you are, you're proposing that we give away, not say give away, but we make a decision minus the emotion. So let's dig deeper into that. Emotion versus logic, right? Here you are, you're saying that you can upload certain locations, like 5 or 6 locations, put it up to your ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever, and make or let AI decide for you.
Yeah.
But in this case, right, emotion versus logic, where do you stand?
Yeah, you see, this is really a good one. And this kind of, when it comes to research, especially when you're doing a lot of online research, a lot of it is driven by specs and logic, if you think about it. But at the end of the day, when you go and see the property, you see the surrounding area, then you get a feel of the property itself. And that's when I think emotion comes in. But during the initial research phase, where you haven't stepped out of your house and you're doing a bunch of desktop stuff, that's all logic.
All right.
Yeah, it's very little emotion. Or unless it's like, okay, I want to live very far from my parents or something like that. Then maybe that's some of the decision making that's based on emotion. But generally, when you're comparing specs and you're using AI or whatever, it's very logically driven.
Correct.
Yeah, you're just comparing. It's like a price comparison.
This is 5 minutes to office.
Yeah.
This is 20 kilometers to wherever, whatnot. Okay. So then you stand on emotion or logic? That's my question here.
I think you need both to make a informed decision. I mean, for us, when essentially we're in the service of ensuring that there's enough information on our site, the agents you interact with are verified, and we've done the verification and they're verified agents. We want to ensure it's a very safe environment for you to find your next purchase or rental. So for us, it's very important for us to put all of the information there that's very accurate. So that's very logical. But we also want to ensure that things like photos or videos that are uploaded are done in a very nice way. So then there is an emotional element as well to it, because it is a listing. It is a house. Someone lived there. Someone loved the house. And it needs to be showcased in a way that is honest and truthful, but also in a way that it's attractive and it's exciting and people want to go and see it. So I would say it's definitely a balance between the two.
A balance between both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've now said backtracking.
Yeah.
But earlier on, you spoke about buyer's behavior. You spoke about behavior, right? So let's talk about the buyer's behavior and how or what would you think is the most common mistake buyers make when they purchase a property?
Oh, wow. When you're a first-time buyer, I think there are quite a few, not to say mistakes, but almost like you don't have hindsight.
Okay.
Right? Because hindsight is 20/20, right? So you don't have foresight, I mean.
Right.
So I would say like the largest areas where we see a lot of, and we do a lot of surveys, we talk to a lot of these buyers and sellers and agents, etc. And what we tend to find is first-time buyers underestimate the cost of actually owning the property. I think that's the one that, so for instance, let's say they have a certain budget. They may not have accounted for, say, maintenance in an apartment, for example. So that's almost like secondary. They've already committed, they've already paid their booking, and then they realize, oh, crap, it's quite a lot, so those kind of things are one. Second thing is even the cost of kind of renovating or fixing up your house or maintaining it over the year. Those are things that, comes through experience of owning a house, maybe your second house, the third house, you're very well informed in terms of all these additional costs. So I think additional costs and budgeting for that, usually for first-time buyer, that's kind of missing from their equation. So this is where also I think like, portals like us or AI tend to be, more consultative and saying, okay, you might need to account for some of these things when you're going through the purchase. So
Because you put all the information out.
yeah. So like we have a guide section on our site. It tells you all about, cost of ownership, maintenance. If you have a lot of facilities, obviously the cost of maintenance in an apartment will be higher than one that doesn't have a gym or doesn't have all of these other different things. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So cost is an issue. Yeah, it makes sense, man.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Actually, sorry, can I just add on to that?
Please.
Okay, so there's an interesting trend that we've also been seeing. We do a consumer sentiment survey.
Okay.
And recently we've started to see something emerge that is quite interesting. So this is both a regret, but it's also a criteria for new buyers, which is to find property where I wouldn't say it's about finding okay, so this is all about sustainability and climate related incidents, etc. So it's not so much looking at it from a really pure climate, I want to be eco and green. It's not so much that, but it's almost like climate impacts. So they want to make property decisions where there's very little climate impact. So not affected by floods, no historical flood area. They want to ensure that, there's no issues in the, with electrical supply of energy or power. So a lot of those kind of decisions, I think, especially after the pandemic and after the time that we've had to spend at home, and they kind of worry that, okay, I'm going to be stuck in a place if that happens again. They're starting to make decisions that are a lot more informed like that. And those that didn't make those decisions are also like, oh, wow, I wish I kind of thought about all of these things. So that I feel is it's a maturing of the Malaysian populace to kind of start thinking in those manners. It's very, I would say like, when you go to like Scandinavia, developed countries, Europe, there's a lot of thought that goes into climate. Where am I staying? Is the development safe? Did we do it in a safe way for the environment? We're starting to see some of that here as well, which I think is quite interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's that. And would you say that has affected buyers' choices, or at least when they interact with you also?
I think it's, I think more so. Okay, so our site, for instance, we have inventory from both the used property market and also the primary market, so new properties. So we tend to see this more as a trend that affects more new developments, because the established ones, it's very clear what's been happening in that surrounding area. It's very easy to track. You kind of know. But new developments, I think there's a lot more interest in terms of how the developer has gone into kind of making sure that it's safe, etc. So, and I feel like the developers are also realizing this. So you see a lot more green development, a lot more certified, sustainable in terms of development, energy. There's lots of more guarantees around those areas than before. Yeah. So I think people, it's kind of in tandem, which is great, I think. Yeah.
And property developers are also learning or leaning into those trends.
Definitely leaning into those trends.
Okay, good. So, talking about those trends, right? What are the top 5 pull factors for buyers based on what you've seen?
I would say beyond price, obviously, because that one is a no-brainer, right? Okay, so let's take away price from this. If I were to break it down, location is definitely a key one. And if you look at so location would have not just kind of like proximity to things like work, etc. So when you look at location, I would say, okay, that's beyond just the proximity portions. It's also safety and support. So is this a safe location? Do I have enough family support in the area if I need it? So those are two very important ones. I think that's quite interesting. Infrastructure amenities, like that's why I think like townships are super important, super key, and very exciting, I think, for future development as well. And fourth is, of course, value, not just of today, which is not just the sticker price or sticker shock or whatever. It's also long-term value. Like, I'm going to be investing a lot in this. Is this going to grow with me and, going to allow me to kind of maybe use this as equity for future purchase? And the last one, as I mentioned, was sustainability. I think, the stack ranking and order may be different for different people, but generally these are the 5 main areas that we see a lot of interest. And that, we see that through the search criteria, how people filter down the properties, etc. And these tend to stand out as the most important ones.
Okay, that's good. I mean, again, it boils down to everyone's different priorities. Yeah. So we go back to a bit on location and township planning, right? Or thinking. So if location and township planning is one of those pull factors, now how important is it today for buyers to look beyond that one single property?
Well, I think it's like so important now. Honestly, yeah, I think, especially coming out of the pandemic and the fact that everyone was stuck at home for extended periods of time, I think living in a township, I think is like very, very important nowadays. One is you want to be close to work, and if that is satisfied within the township, that's great. You want to be able to walk down and have a healthy lifestyle. So being able to go down to the gym or walk down even just to buy groceries and walk back. And also just to have everything in an area that you feel safe and comfortable and you can call your own, I think is really, really important. So I think this is a trend that, we've seen grow. And then you also see that in prices of homes, for example. So like if you look at, I'll just give an example of a township. Let's say you look at Desa Park City, for example. And obviously it's a township that's taken like 20 over years to arrive where it is today. Correct. But if you look at the price increases in properties in Desa Park City versus, let's say, a neighboring neighborhood, for example, that doesn't have that township quality, you will see that it's definitely multiples more than outside those kind of areas. So I feel like developers know this, and such as yourselves, and you tend to create these townships, which is great, and I think that also creates an economy, creates jobs within those areas. So I think it actually helps in multiple different ways.
Which brings me to my next question.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so my next question actually is talking about that. So this Tropicana has been developing townships near strategic locations such as Lido Waterfront, Tropicana Chenang at Chenang Beach, and Avalon at Genting Highlands. So from there, from a buyer and planning perspective, what are your thoughts on that development?
I mean, see, the thing is, I think one area that a lot of people may take for granted, but should double think how much effort it takes for a developer to create a township. Yeah. Right? It's a parcel of land, what's around it, how much effort it needs to actually build it up. So I feel like there needs to be a bit more appreciation in terms of when you look at townships and evaluate it that way, and it can't be evaluated in the same way as you would evaluate a single location building or apartment. So I feel like, when a township is built, and it's built in a way that there's businesses, small business, and it encourages kind of a lot of living and quality of life stuff in the township, there's definitely value in that beyond the value of the property that you're buying. So I think it's really useful to go and evaluate and see how people are living in those areas. Go down for a couple of dinners, go down for a couple of lunches, and see how the community that you're going to be living with are in that area. I think those would make it an easier choice, I think, versus just living out in the open in an area that's not really a township.
So would you say, before making that hard purchase, you actually go down there?
You should.
And spend more time on the research.
I feel you should. I mean, like, see, a lot of times, a buyer today would follow an agent, for example. Let's say it's a secondary house. You follow an agent, you would see a few different areas, and then maybe you make a choice. When it comes to a new development, you obviously need to look at a plan. You need to see, and you also have the opportunity to also evaluate their previous developments and see how it's being managed, etc. So I feel like, as property prices are on the rise, and it is expensive to buy a house in an area like KL and in Klang Valley, it's definitely worth the effort to go and see how you would live if you live in that area.
Okay. So now we talked about how making a decision and all that. And you also talked about how prices of property is actually on the up. Beyond that, beyond price and location, what are the most overlooked factors that determine whether a property holds or grows its value over time?
You see, it's when we were talking about township, right? The analogy I can make is, like, for example, if you're someone who is really into the Apple ecosystem, for example, you would tend to stick to it. Like, you have a MacBook, you have an iPhone, everything's easy. And if you're on Android, for example, you kind of stick on Android. A township's almost like that, right? So the value is, I think, beyond the price, and if you really like living there, it is very hard to put a price on your happiness. And the choice is actually, for instance, the location that you're choosing has a school that's nearby. Your kids can walk to school. It's safe. That has some value in it that is not attached to your property value.
That's sort of incalculable.
Yeah.
Tangible.
Yeah. And it might be priceless even, right? Like, you don't even know how. So I think it's important to think beyond just, okay, how many, because it's very easy to boil all of this down to how many ringgit per square feet. And then you have a conversation with your friends over teh tarik and you're like, oh, that much per square feet, and then there's a lot of arguments around whether it's worth it or not. But I think, what it's worth to you could be quite different to someone else. So that's why I feel like it's very important to kind of go and experience those, if you're going to buy a place. And if you really enjoy living in a place, it's definitely worth more than your whatever ringgit per square feet it is at that point. Yeah. So that's what I feel value is.
Okay. A bit of a serious question here.
Yeah.
So now, from what you hear in the market,
Okay.
what are bankers focused on today when they approve home loans?
Generally, they want to be able to make as much as they can by giving you as much loan as you can handle, right? So, I mean, the whole idea is they take a deposit and they want to be able to loan that out and make a difference between those two interest rates, right? But of course, they also want to make sure that they are able to secure as much of those loans with very highly reliable projects. So what we've been hearing is there's definitely a growth in I mean, as we were talking earlier on data and how everyone now is using so much data to make decisions, and so are the institutions as well. I mean, of course, when you go and apply for a loan, for example, your financial records and your credit history obviously matter a lot in terms of whether the loan gets decided or not. Yeah. And whether you can afford to pay for this, whether you've got, your affordability. It's not just your credit rating. It could be very clean, but it could also be like, you've already got 4 houses, dude, like how are you going to afford to pay for another one kind of thing. But also like, they also want to see whether the development you're buying from is actually from a developer. Let's say it's a new property that's legit. If you're buying a house, they want to ensure that the value of the surrounding properties are similar. So there's a lot of data, not just on your own credit rating, but also on what you're buying. They want to make sure the underlying asset actually is genuine before they issue that. So we do see situations where a perfectly person with great credit record, but because the maybe slightly iffy development that they're going to might not get the loan approved, or it might have they might require a higher percentage of cash upfront. So the risk is taken by the buyer rather than the bank itself. So there's a couple of those kind of things that are happening, I think. Yeah. Which again, I think goes back to, buy from a prominent developer.
But talking about it, right? So as a buyer, so let's go down to the buyer's perspective. What can they do realistically to improve their chances of getting that loan approved or getting that credit score better? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the credit score one, I think there's enough documentation on how you can improve your credit score for sure. I think obviously ensure any kind of loan payment is paid on time, because obviously, be delayed by even a month, for example, it's very easy for someone who takes your credit report to be able to see delays in payment, etc. Because that just says your behaviors, right? Are you someone who pays the bills on time, or you kind of delay, etc.? That obviously makes a difference. And over a certain period of time, if you maintain good repayment behaviors, etc., you can clear up your credit rating and make it good enough. But obviously, you can go to Bank Negara, you can get a free report. You can look at it. Actually, you can do it online now. So
Yeah,
you should definitely, you can do a secret online through Bank Negara site. Yeah, so everyone should do that. Yeah,
Okay.
theoretically.
All right. Now this is a heavy-handed question.
Oh no.
I mean, choose to answer at your peril.
Oh, at my peril?
Now, has the rise of dominant property platforms,
Okay.
such as yourself, shifted power towards buyers, agents, or developers, or has it just simply changed how decisions are made?
I mean, that's a great question. The way I would look at it is, if you look at a portal like ours, we're really a marketplace. So we want to bring buyers and sellers, landlords and renters in a place where we can, as transparently as possible, list down all of the details of the property, ensure that the person who's selling it, the agent that's selling it, is verified. So we want to do everything that we can to make the marketplace a bit more efficient.
Okay.
So I feel like if you talk about shifting in power, let me see. I think the both the parties that are on the platform actually do benefit from this, because if the way that we look at it is, if we get as many of the listings in the market as possible, and those listings are, as I said, good quality and from verified sources, that means your demand side, which is either your buyers or your renters, for example, would see the cleanest listings they can, and it's from a trustworthy source. So which means that the transaction happens. So that means I would say then the person that benefits from this is actually the underlying buyers or sellers, landlords or renters. So I think it's just making the marketplace more efficient. So
consumers benefit most.
Consumers, but also the vendor who's selling the house would benefit, etc. So it's just, maybe it makes it more efficient in a way that it's, you can close the deal sooner because you get the listing that you want sooner. Prices are transparent because you can see all the pricing in that thing. You can see all the past transaction prices in the neighborhood. So that makes you a very well-informed buyer. So it's all about efficiency, I think. Yeah.
Last but not least, if you could leave buyers with one guiding principle to help them make better property decisions over the next 5 to 10 years, what would it be?
The key one would be to consult your spouse.
Happy wife, happy life.
Or vice versa.
I see what you're saying.
But I would say, again, kind of going back and closing off my first point, there's a lot of information and data that's out there.
Yeah.
And I feel like, it's your responsibility to make an informed decision, because all that information is available for you. So you should not just rely on a single source of information. Like, for example, you get all the information from an agent, and you're satisfied with it, and then you go ahead, because you might feel like, oh, I should have, done a bit more research, etc. So I feel like, the onus and responsibility is on the buyer. It's a very important decision. You should do enough of the background homework to kind of understand that. So I would say, get on the portals, look at the listings, meet a few agents, see a few places, see how you would live in that area, kind of go through this process in a way that is, enjoy, and have fun doing it, right? It's like, oh, let's go to this area, let's spend 2-3 hours there. I think would really help in kind of making the decision a lot more fun, and hopefully a better decision than just, doing it in a very quick and rapid way and finalizing the deal.
All right, Vic. So with that, thank you very much for being here on our show. I appreciate you giving a very deep and I would say a lot of info on the whole property sector here. I appreciate your deep insights, and thank you very much for being here. So with Simiti, come, let me pour you some tea for me. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate
As a token of appreciation, we also have something to give you.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, great. Have a look at this.
You can enjoy your next cup of coffee. Or
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate this. Oh, I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Come, let's cheers for the camera. Till next time. Thank you again. So there we have it. Vic Sithasanan from PropertyGuru. And if you'd like to know more or find out more about upcoming episodes, don't forget to check out t360.com.my and follow us on My Tropicana Lifestyle. Till then, see you again. Bye-bye. Cheers.
Cheers.
He's okay, eh?
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, thank you.